At the forefront of our society exist many games in which a lot of people may deem to be offensive in nature. But the game that we're going to be discussing in today's video was a game deemed by EA to be too offensive to be released. I know, it sounds crazy, especially since fighting games have historically had gory elements in which sort of serve to grant the genre the following that it has today. But what if I showed you a game that apparently was so graphic that it left corporate overlords fearful and scratching their heads at the thought of it being released? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Banned Media. And today we're going to be taking a look at Thrill Kill, a fighting game that the industry banned for being too violent. Snug Bro TV. Hey Snug Bro, how about you ban this middle finger? The objective for Thrill Kill was simple. Make a video game that was full-blown adult. The company Paradox Development would do this and do the unthinkable and develop a video game that combines fighting with some freaky activities, let's just say. We'll get into more of this in a second, but to paint you a clear picture, this was a BDSM themed fighting game. Oh, hell no! And it was one of the first ever video games to receive an adults only ESRB rating. So yeah, this is one of the type of games you'd find in the back of a Spencer's as opposed to a GameStop or like a Toys R Us. But I sense you, the YouTube viewer, clenching your fists, screaming at the screen, Snug Bro, oh Snug Bro, how could a video game ever receive a more mature rating than M for mature? Well, it all begins with the company's thirst for recognition. Before being acquired by Midway Studios, Paradox Development would take any gig that they could get, and in the late 90s, began development on a PlayStation game entitled Earth Monster. Earth Monster centered around a Mesoamerican sport where they get really unchill with each other, but also work together to put a sports ball through a sports hoop. Virgin Interactive, the publisher of Earth Monster, were really committed to one thing and one thing only: money. Throughout the development, they would pressure Paradox to make the game more and more violent, eventually abandoning the sports ball altogether and replacing it with a fighting game. A great way of generating publicity and money in Virgin's eyes would be to create controversy in an otherwise new gaming industry. Ironically, being named Virgin, the company decided that a good additive to watching people fight on screen was to make those people almost naked. And Paradox were forced to scrap the Aztec theme for something more inclined to support BDSM people and BDSM accessories. Now you may already be saying, Snug, I already play this game on Steam at 3 a.m. every morning. But this was gonna be a PlayStation game, folks. A mainstream video game title for the living room. And you will not believe what this game turned out to be. In Thrill Kill, a group of 10 condemned souls consisting of former serial killers, violent people, and embodiments of various mental disorders or vices have all been sent to hell. They are summoned by a powerful being named Maruka, who offers them a chance at reincarnation. To earn reincarnation, they must fight one another in a brutal 3D fighting game tournament in which takes place in various disgusting and hellish arenas. Instead of depleting health bars, players must fill a kill meter by landing attacks. Once the meter is full, they can perform a gruesome finishing move called a Thrill Kill to eliminate an opponent. The match continues until only 2 fighters remain, and the first to fill their meter again wins with a unique final violent, freaky, nasty execution. You have 12 different characters to play as. Of course, you have the Maruka character, or as the game describes her, the quote-unquote goddess of secrets. But you can also play as Judas, who in this game is represented by a conjoined pair of twins. Judas, for those who didn't know, is described in the Bible as being the person who betrayed Jesus. But outside of those two, you have the island of misfit toys. You can play as a dominatrix librarian, a cannibal, an evil plastic surgeon, an FBI agent, a gorilla, and a judge, just to name a few. You could also apparently unlock a GIMP character, inspired by the GIMP character in Pulp Fiction. As I mentioned, this game loves referencing extreme forms of fornication. This game, boasting a 4-person co-op, was meant to be a drunk, weird, outcast family member to Mortal Kombat, and it was made to make a statement in the gaming industry to be as offensive as possible to the most easily offended people in society. Then EA purchased the company that was in charge of this IP and ultimately scrapped the game in 1998 after enough people in business suits realized that this would probably be a bad idea for the company. According to Lewis Castle, the founder of the company that contracted Paradox into making this game, he says that, quote, EA was working hard to overcome the industry stigma of games as a more violent medium than film or TV, which if that's the case, I consider this to be an EAW. This game would have completely emboldened the stigma and would have probably led to being a generational scapegoat for future violent acts in society. EA had also been subject to intense scrutiny on behalf of former Senator Joe Lieberman in the early 90s, with him forcing them to adhere to strict marketing practices as it pertained to the violence in their video games, and was a crucial senator in leading the creation of the ESRB rating system. Thrill Kill itself would eventually attract a cult-like following after bootleg versions of it were uploaded to various pirating websites. I cannot imagine what group of people that play this game could possibly smell like.